Thank you, Daryl. And I'll have another opportunity after our final speaker to thank Daryl and the rest of the team that has put together this challenging format for our annual meeting. We count upon the support of private citizens in the United States and around the world to continue the important work that we do, both on nuclear and on other forms of weapons of mass destruction. And so we'll remind you more than once that your generosity is appreciated. Now, what I'd like to do is to introduce our final speaker. After the election results last month, there is potential for a new US administration to go in different directions, but none of that is going to be easy. It will involve a lot of dialogue with the members of the new team and among the members of the new team. And importantly, it will involve the members of Congress, where debates about nuclear policy, the nuclear budget, and our entire concept of national security will play out over the next several years. That's why it's so important that we build upon the unprecedentedly high turnout of American voters to continue that kind of activism, participation, and engagement with both the United States House and the United States Senate, and to give our vocal, visible support to those members of Congress who are advocating for a more rational, sustainable, and less risky national security strategy. And that brings us to our final speaker, Senator Gillibrand, who has served for more than 12 years, almost 12 years since being appointed to replace Hillary Clinton as the junior senator from New York. Throughout her career, she has advocated not just for a strong national security, but for a national security that looks out for military families. It's of a piece with her attention to working families, working women, and the challenges that women face, not just in the military, but across our society. And she's with us today in this recorded message also because she has been a leader, together with Senator Merkley, in advocating for the extension of New START, for retaining the Open Skies Treaty, for opposing the poor idea of the administration for the resumption of nuclear tests. So she is one voice that we count upon to keep our goals of a less dangerous US nuclear policy on the front burner of the Congress's agenda. And with that, let's listen to what Senator Gillibrand has put together for us.
Hello, everyone, and thank you, Thomas, for that kind introduction. I'm so pleased to join the Arms Control Association for your annual meeting. I want to send my thanks to all of you for the critical work you do, from education to advocacy, and especially to Kingston Reef, who has been a valued resource to my staff. There's almost no area of policy decision-making with stakes as high as nuclear issues. Nuclear weapons are extraordinarily expensive. The ramifications of proliferation are extremely high, and the risks that accompany nuclear use are existential. As leaders and as advocates, pushing for a measured strategic approach to nuclear policy is one of our greatest responsibilities. Over the past 4 years, a fundamental lack of understanding of that great responsibility has left us in a more precarious place on the world stage. Your work making the case against President Trump's policies and raising the alarm on nuclear spending has helped limit the worst instincts of his administration. But we must ensure their choices do not continue to impact our approach. President Trump requested an astonishing $44.5 billion for nuclear weapons program at DoD and DOE in fiscal year 2021. That's a nearly 20% increase. It also accounts for 6% of the total national defense request, up from 5%. That kind of spending growth is unsustainable, especially if national security spending stays flat or even decreases in the coming years. When we think about future spending, we have to be honest and recognize that those increases were driven not by need, but by the Trump administration's dangerous escalatory plans for our nuclear arsenal and their fearful, hawkish mischaracterization of our nuclear rivals' intentions. The Trump administration and its allies in Congress and the academic community consistently accuse Russia and China of developing nuclear capabilities that could be used in tactical contexts short of nuclear war. Then they cherry-pick statements from foreign officials and misrepresent government policy in order to prove their point. While there is certainly robust debate over nuclear use policy that occurs in Moscow and Beijing, we have to evaluate their policies in good faith. These governments and their leaders have spent decades signaling that they view their arsenal as a defensive insurance policy and would be highly unlikely to initiate nuclear use. The approach of Trump and his allies, attempting to justify their destabilizing policies on poorly founded accusations against other countries, only created more problems. When the Trump administration's actions telegraphed to China and Russia that their nuclear arsenal would not deter U.S. first use, that only incentivized them to build and test new weapon systems. Trump has spurred the development of new low-yield nuclear weapons, botched negotiations over future arms treaties, and even tested theater missile defense capabilities against an intercontinental missile. That made mutual deterrence less certain and the world less safe. Now his allies in Congress want to fund renewed explosive nuclear testing in the National Defense Authorization Act. A Trump-style nuclear demonstration test would not only have no scientific or strategic benefit, but would also open the door for our rivals to conduct renewed, environmentally fraught tests that could provide them with useful information about the state of their arsenal. I proudly cast one of just 2 no votes against the bill coming out of committee because of that funding. Spending more money, especially in this reckless manner, does not make us more secure. As we set forth on a new path with the Biden administration, I know we can count on them to not only avoid testing at all costs, but to reset our overall posture and adjust our approach. As they do, we should be asking ourselves how much the United States government must spend on its nuclear weapons complex to achieve the results we need, especially at a time when those taxpayer dollars could be spent addressing COVID, preventing the next pandemic, rebuilding our economy, or limiting the impact of climate change. The Trump presidency has made clear that Congress cannot stand by as the executive wastes blood and treasure waging endless wars in pursuit of unclear goals. We must reassert our authority and ensure that every dollar spent and every life sacrificed furthers progress towards a discernible, important policy objective, and that if it does not, that we spend it elsewhere. That's why this Congress, I introduced legislation that would reassert Congress's war powers by creating processes to facilitate limited, tailored, and conditions-based authorizations for the use of military force abroad. The same logic must be applied toward our nuclear policy. We need to make smart investments based on a clear understanding of the threats we face and the goal of protecting Americans and our allies, avoiding nuclear war, and achieving stable deterrence. We need to ask hard questions about major current programs, including low-yield nuclear weapons, a new intercontinental ballistic missile, and strategic and tactical missile defense. And we need to recognize that these programs are likely at best unnecessary and ineffective, and at worst, strategically destabilizing. We have a responsibility to the American people to pursue diplomatic routes whenever possible, especially when nuclear weapons are involved. Doing so is critical to achieving our non-proliferation and nuclear stability goals. I stood by those ideals as one of the first senators to come out in support of President Obama's nuclear accord with Iran. Watching the Trump administration tear up that deal, escalate tensions, and push Iran to expand its nuclear program has been deeply disturbing. Getting back to a nuclear deal with Iran may prove difficult, but I trust the Biden administration will find a way forward that limits Iran's nuclear program, provides the needed sanctions relief, and accounts for the concerns of our regional allies and partners. I'm also hopeful that our renewed focus on diplomatic efforts with rivals like Russia and China will lead the Biden administration to extend New START, to bring China into talks about nuclear stability, and to counter North Korea's nuclear program. The success of our nuclear program relies on the recognition of our responsibility to make that enterprise reflect the values of the American people. In addition to meeting that responsibility in our spending and in our approach, we must also meet it in our efforts to bring as many voices and perspectives into policy discussions as possible. Last year, New America released a study that found that nuclear professionals remain overwhelmingly white and male, despite the fact that women have worked in the field for decades. And for the women who do make it into the field, the workplace is too often hostile. The New York Times published the story of a Nevada nuclear facility security forces worker who was fired after reporting her brutal workplace sexual assault. There is no place for that kind of behavior or retaliation in any of our workplaces, especially those in the nuclear field, where sidelining women also means sidelining a critical source of new and innovative policy ideas. We must all call for the full inclusion of women, from the halls where policies are made to the booths where their products are being guarded. As we begin the work of restoring American leadership in non-proliferation, I look forward to continue our work to advance our shared goals, from our approach to non-proliferation and arms control to ensuring new, badly needed voices have a seat at the table. Thank you again for having me here today and all your work to make the world a safer place.
Well, let me thank Senator Gillibrand for those comments. You can see why we look to her and an increasing number of senators and representatives to lead the fight for a safer U.S. security policy. If I could take just a couple more minutes, and then I will let you all go. I first want to thank the outstanding staff of the Arms Control Association for putting this together today. Tony Fleming in particular was the honcho for this new experiment in a virtual meeting. I was very pleased to hear Senator Gillibrand thank specifically Kingston Reef for the work that he's done to help educate members of Congress. I could say great things about every member of this team, but I'll of course single out our executive director, Daryl Kimball, who has been an outstanding asset, not just for the association, but for the nation and the world, and to praise him for some incredible work. What makes me happy and proud to be the chairman of the board of this association is the fact that this team does such incredible work on a shoestring budget. We don't ask big defense contractors for money. We wouldn't take it if they offered it. We rely upon foundations and upon individual members who are concerned about these same existential issues as we are to support the work that we do. We need to keep an independent eye to be able to speak truth to power in both the administration and in the Congress and to the public. And so if you are more convinced after today's meeting of the importance of this work, I ask that you be generous. Take a moment to go online to armscontrol.org, click on the buttons to donate or to join. I guarantee you, you cannot join a more prestigious organization at a lower cost than the Arms Control Association. If you wish to pay more, we will gladly accept it. Finally, as important as it is to participate in a meeting like this, to contribute to ACA and its work, it's even more important that you be involved in the daily, monthly, annual debates that we will have to have with our fellow citizens within the US and around the world about how to make the world more safe from the risk of nuclear war and other use of weapons of mass destruction. At the beginning of a new administration, we are at a turning point. Can we, as my friend Stanford professor Martin Hellman says, can we rethink national security? Can we provide for US security and for global security in a way that is less risky, more responsible, effective, and sustainable? The answer to that question depends entirely upon the people who fill the most important jobs in our democracy, the jobs of citizens. So please be engaged, please make your voice heard, and we look forward to hearing from all of you and to your continued support. Thank you all, and God bless you.